Mountain ranges with snow-dusted peaks cool their feet in the clear blue sea. Greece boasts 13,000 kilometers of shoreline. Welcome to Hellas. Welcome aboard a journey of discovery to the sites of classical Greek mythology, the roots of Occidental history, the birthplace of Western culture. Welcome home. This episode begins in Eastern Macedonia, taking us from Lake Kerkini near the Bulgarian border and onwards via Aia Eleni and Amphipolis to Thrace. After a side trip to Kavala, we reach Komotini, then end this part of our journey with a visit to Dadia and Soufli in the Turkish border area. At Lake Kerkini, we meet up with water buffalo, which were on the brink of extinction here, until Vasilios came along to ensure their continued existence. At a nearby restaurant, cook Argyro profits from Vasilios' efforts, conjuring up local buffalo meat specialties for her guests. Just a few kilometers away in Aia Eleni, we join Cleo in her preparations for the Anastenaria festival, where participants dance themselves into a trance state before walking across burning embers. In Komotini, we meet the band Balkanatolia, musicians of various origins. Their concerts are an exercise in unity, combining the different cultural currents of the region. Close to the Turkish border, we meet up with Terry. It's partly thanks to her that vultures can feel at home in Dadia. Not far from there, we witness the creation of silk, from the worm to the weaving mill. And we meet Yorgos, who is working to revamp the image of this precious product of his home region. Right near the Bulgarian border, in the shadow of Mount Mavrooni, lies Lake Kerkini. A man-made dam keeps its annual floodwaters in check to protect the areas below. This wetland region boasts a high level of biodiversity and has thus been made a nature protection zone. There is one group of animals here, however, that you wouldn't have necessarily expected to find in these parts. They're usually associated more with the Orient, with Asia. Lake Kerkini is the home of, yes, water buffalo. There have been water buffalo at Lake Kerkini since ancient times. There are even references to them in classical texts. Some say Alexander the Great brought them here. Others say it was Xerxes. But in recent years, they had become an endangered species here. For many years, Vasilios Papadopoulos was a simple butcher by trade, until he discovered his love for water buffalo. Now, he's a buffalo breeder. The vegetation here is ideal. The grass is perfect for the buffalo. And of course the water. That's important, especially in the summer months, when they're often in need of refreshment. Buffalo do struggle in the heat. They need access to water so that they can cool themselves down. Vasilios has about 150 buffalo in his herd. He loves to watch his animals, and sometimes he also talks to them. Every day I take a walk through the herd for at least an hour. I observe the animals to see if any of them has a problem or is about to give birth. I know every single one of them. The buffalo are more social than cattle and cows. They're just different, smarter, more social. For example, a mother will even accept it when another cow's calf suckles her. Things like that are rare in the animal kingdom, but with buffalo, it's a common occurrence. And what's more, buffalo also have unbelievable instincts. They feel it when you like them, when you like to stroke them. In other words, they can read your mind. And they usually have no reservations about approaching you. The home of his buffalo, Lake Kerkini, is a nature reserve. 300 species of bird live here. And Vasilios also seems to take personal pride in the abundance of fish in the lake. Because all of this together, the clean water, the grass, the fish, the birds, and the insects from which they live, make up the biotope in which the water buffalo thrive. But there is another aspect of Vasilios' work with the water buffalo. Besides being a wildlife conservationist, he's also a butcher by trade. After all, Vasilios can only finance the breeding activities by slaughtering some of the rare buffalo as well. Here in the butcher shop he runs with his wife, the meat is turned into a sausage delicacy. Buffalo meat is something very special indeed. Not only is it exceptionally tasty, it is also exceptionally healthy and wholesome as well, because the animals have spent their lives outdoors, grazing freely on natural vegetation. Buffalo meat is very high in iron and other minerals, and many people find it easier to digest than other meats. There are people who can't eat beef because they have an allergic reaction to the whey or other ingredients of the cattle feed that end up in the meat, but they can eat buffalo meat with no negative effects. I feel like a bit of a pioneer because we've marketed this buffalo meat here as a local delicacy. And the locals, some eat it, some don't.
Οι συντοπίτες μου κάποιοι το καταναλώνουν, ακόμα κάποιοι δεν το καταναλώνουν.
$2,400 years ago, the Greeks exported the water buffalo to their colony, then known as Campania, the coastal region around Naples, where mozzarella was invented. However, the fresh cheese traditionally made from buffalo milk never found its way back to Greece. But here, buffalo meat is now becoming increasingly popular. It's found its way onto the menu of numerous restaurants, including the one at this taverna. Agiro Piperidou cooks here and had already fired up the stone oven when we arrived. She was busy preparing a vegetable bed of onions, garlic, carrots, red peppers, and pureed tomatoes, seasoned with herbs and wine.
Because we have the buffalo here in Kerkini, we also know how to prepare the meat. It's very good meat, and we also know the animal. First of all, it's quite lean. And secondly, it has a delicious flavor. It really is a lovely meat. Buffalo meat is a type of game. So you have to prepare it differently than domesticated meats. It's harder, more like veal, but firmer and darker. You can do it as a pot roast, use it for tas kebab, eggplant stew, or braise it. It's just really tasty.
The pan-browned meat is put on the bed of vegetables and will then roast in the stone oven for 3 hours. Ayiro often serves the roast buffalo with noodles. She's been cooking since she was 13 and loves to experiment, which is how she discovered buffalo meat.
There have always been water buffalo in Kerkini, but only in the last few years has the demand for buffalo meat increased. And we've also now learned to prepare and to eat it. Tourists also like the buffalo meat very much, so we're keeping it on the menu.
At the tip of Lake Kerkini, behind a power station, the mighty retaining wall releases its hold on the Strimonas River that rushes down from the mountains. From here, the regulated flow seeks its way to the coast. The river's tributaries and floodplains have been preserved in the interest of nature conservation. The region is, after all, a well-known migration area for many endangered bird species. The floodplains, swamps, and shallow waters here are a rich source of nutrition for the storks that build their nests in the local towns. Stork nests usually last for years, in need of only minor repairs now and then with twigs and the like. Other smaller birds often share the nest. The storks put up with the unbidden subletters as they help to strengthen the nest exterior with building materials of their own. There are 3 to 5 eggs in an average stork clutch, and it takes 50 to 100 days for the young to become fully fledged and leave the nest. Beak rattling is the standard greeting among storks. From here, the plains, surrounded by low mountain ranges, stretch down all the way to the coast. It's a fertile breadbasket. The hamlets on either side of the Strimonas live from agriculture. Their cash crops include cotton and tobacco. One of these is the village Aya Eleni. We arrived there just in time to witness some unusual goings-on. The whole village had been decked out with streamers. Firewood was being carefully arranged. It was the end of May, and the village was preparing for a very special annual festival to mark the name day of St. Constantine, the Anastenaria Festival. Cleo Panayotou, the lady in the pale green dress, is the mayor of Aya Eleni, here accompanied by her son. They're both regular participants in the Saints' Day celebrations. Religious faith and ritual is a key element of social cohesion in these poor regions of Greece.
If you have faith, and if you can love, then you can get ahead in life. Of course, in everyday life, you'll inevitably run across people who will hurt and disappoint you. But if you're someone who's able to really love your fellow human beings, then you'll be able to overcome almost any obstacle or difficulty. You will indeed.
The Anastenaria festivities last a full 3 days. Virtually the entire community goes on a 3-day religious journey together with prayer, music, and dancing themselves into a trance. On the first day, the icon of St. Constantine is blessed and carried through the village by the congregation. Almost all the villagers, together with outside guests, join in a kilometer-long procession through the streets to the festival hall at the edge of the village. The path of the march leads right across a fairground where once a year during the Anastenaria festival, a little amusement park opens for business. At the edge of the fairgrounds, the icon carriers reach the first stop on their procession, the entrance to a consecrated well. The master of ceremonies splashes the congregants with holy water from the well, an allusion to the Christian baptism ritual. After that, the worshippers move on to the congregation's festival hall, which will be the hub of the Anastenaria activities in the coming days. Here, every year the faithful join in the same ritual preamble to the other festivities to come. On the second day of the Anastenaria festival, the congregation gathers in the early afternoon. Swaying to the hypnotically repetitive rhythm of the band, little by little, the faithful rock themselves into a trance. Anastenaria comes from the Greek verb anastenazo, to sigh. The dance now begins and will continue until deep into the night. Cleo is among the dancers. The dance goes on for hours. Its purpose is to bring the participants into a trance state that will enable them to walk through fire without injury or any sensation of pain, the climactic moment that awaits the faithful on the third day. The dancing continues until late into the night of the second day. The third day begins much the same as the night before. The dance goes on for hours until a trance state is achieved. Cleo takes part every year for religious reasons. For her, the festival is both an expression of faith and a way to unite the village. Friends, family, neighbors, co-workers, together they experience a profound sense of community. While the congregation continues to dance in the hall, outside on the green, the wood pile is set alight with candles from the altar inside. Come nightfall, when the fire has already burnt down, the embers are carefully arranged in the shape of a big circle, the red-hot coal still giving off an intense heat. Then, the big moment arrives. Musicians and dancers spill out of the hall, now thoroughly primed for the climactic event of the festival, firewalking. The custom goes back to a true story from times gone by. One night, a woman in a nearby village dreamt that the church was going up in flames. She awoke and ran out of the house to find that the church really was on fire. In her bare feet, she dashed into the burning church to save the icon of St. Constantine from the flames. In memory of the icon's rescue, the festival in Aia Eleni culminates with the firewalk. Cleo and the others, barefoot and apparently unafraid of pain or injury, begin, oblivious, it seems, to the red-hot embers underfoot.
For me personally, it comes from deep within. The faith, the love you feel in this moment, there are no words to describe it, what goes on inside you.
Εκείνη τη στιγμή δεν μπορώ να σου το εξηγήσω με λόγια. Δεν περιγράφεται. Και νιώθουμε τόσο καλά που
We feel so good when we do it. It's just indescribable.
Δεν μπορώ να στο περιγράψω.
For a good half hour, the congregation dances barefoot through the embers, which remain sizzling hot till the end. Shortly before midnight, the spectacle on the festival village green finally comes to an end. When it was over, all the firewalkers had coal black feet, but no one had been injured, no burns, and none of the dancers, including Cleo, had felt any pain.
Faith and love. When you feel faith, love, and community, you can bear anything.
To wrap things up, long past midnight, all participants again sit down together and take stock of the proceeds of the 3-day festivities. Cash and material donations. The majority of it is later distributed to charitable organizations. But the musicians do receive a modest fee, and all the others fortify themselves with the donated groceries and home-cooked foods.
On the days of the festival, we're all more loving, more cheerful, a real community. It's simply a wonderful thing for the village. And when the festival has come to an end, we return to our everyday lives, to our work, our families.
Cleo is mainly busy being mayor, but she also does a bit of micro-farming on the side. Here, too, the Anastenaria festivities seem to have a positive effect.
It always rains on the days following the festival. Usually, we do the firewalk, and then it starts to rain. Always, in fact. It's never not happened that way.
This part of our journey began at Lake Kerkini near the Bulgarian border and took us along the Strimonas River to Aia Eleni. Now we were ready to move on to Amphipolis, down the coast to Gavala, then inland to a very special bridge over the Polyanthos, and finally to the provincial capital, Komotini. Farther downstream on the Strimonas, just before it flows into the Aegean Sea, was the site of the ancient port city of Amphipolis. All that remains today is the stone statue of a lion that used to stand watch at the back end of town. Its only job now is to give shelter to doves and other birds. This 10-meter-high monument was the sepulchral stone of Laomedon, an admiral in the navy of Alexander the Great. The ancient city and the lion were originally right by the sea, but in the intervening millennia, so much land has washed up here that all evidence of a seaside settlement has vanished. 80 kilometers further east along the coast lies Kavala, a city already rich and renowned in antiquity. Its wealth stemmed from the local gold and silver mines. The Apostle Paul is said to have come ashore here to found Europe's first Christian church on the outskirts of town, which for a time was known as Christopolis for that reason. A Roman aqueduct and an old water conduit supplied the ancient city on the hill above the sea with fresh mountain water. Beneath the fortress is the Emirate, a 19th century Ottoman charitable center with a soup kitchen, a Quranic school, and a little orange grove in the courtyard. It's now a luxury hotel. After first being conquered by the Venetians and the Normans in the 14th century, the city fell into the hands of the Turks, who not only influenced the architecture of the city, but ostensibly also gave it the name Kavala. Opinion, however, is divided. Some say the name comes from cavallo, Italian for horse. After all, in addition to building the castle fortress, the Venetians had also run an important postal station in Kavala. Today, it is an important seaport. From here, ferries service the island of Thassos, and fishing boats sail out to the Aegean, among other things. On the outskirts of the city, a kilometer-long stretch of the old Roman road, the Egnatia Odos, remains intact in its original condition. It once went all the way to Constantinople, present-day Istanbul. For thousands of years, this trade artery ensured the movement of goods in and out of the Orient. In the alluvial land further to the east, numerous rivers flow into the Aegean Sea. One of them is the Nestos. 70% of all European bird species call this place home. Another of these rivers, the Komsatos, is spanned by the remains of an Ottoman-era bridge. A part was purposely destroyed soon after it had been erected. It seems the different ethnic groups that populated the opposite shores, the Vlachs and the Pomaks, got along far too well with each other for the comfort of the ruler of the day. "20 kilometers further east, the capital of the prefecture, Komotini. One half of the population consists of Muslim Roma of Turkish origins and Muslim Pomaks, the other half of Greek Orthodox Christians. This city, which has the tobacco trade to thank for its prosperity, has a very young population. Komotini is home to a popular university. Here, Muslims and Christians live together at close quarters, but despite a long history of hostilities, the shared cultural heritage seems to form a bond between the different ethnic and religious groups. Music is a prime example. In a cafe near the bazaar, the group Balkanatolia would be performing later on. They're known throughout Greece and in Turkey as well. A late afternoon sound check. Friends joined in to help turn the cafe into a concert venue. Balkanatolia uses modern instruments, from the electric guitar to drums to the accordion and keyboards, but their sound is firmly rooted in traditional folk instruments, such as the sasi, pendir, and dudu. The 5-member band often plays together with guest musicians from Bulgaria and Turkey. We've been around for 4 to 5 years now. I mean, in the formation we have now. Vardan was the last to join. The special thing about us is, once someone's joined, they're in the band forever. It might happen that Vardan or another band member can't do a particular concert, but someone else from Athens, for example, who knows our repertoire, can step in for the gig. So we're actually a team of about 10 to 11. I think our music is a mixture. It's music from the Balkans with a very personal note that each individual brings to it. Rock, pop, jazz, many traditional Greek songs, folk songs too. It all comes out beautifully in the mix, I hope.
Και όλα αυτά γίνονται μια όμορφη μάζα, θέλω να πιστεύω.
By the time the concert began, the cafe had filled up nicely. This time the combo was joined by a fiddler. Mario, the guitarist, is a teacher. Marcel on drums works at a bank. The band leader on the sasi is a lawyer. Many of the musicians were born in the area. Many have Turkish ancestry. Vardan on the accordion is Armenian.
Και μας κυβερνά και μας πολεμά. Δεν βλέπει και εσύ χέινος φυραπέρνιο και φένσεις καλά.
Balkan Anatolia is a musical contribution to intercultural understanding. The musicians see themselves as ambassadors for conciliation between Christianity and Islam, between European modernity and ancient Oriental roots. Yet they do not see their band as political. Obviously, each one of us has certain political convictions, and not just because of our various cultural backgrounds. It's simply a matter of basic human sensibilities. But we're not a political band. That is, we don't have a political message. On the other hand, the very existence in a region of Greece like Thrace of a music group made up of people with such different backgrounds is in itself a political statement.
Ανθρώπους που προέρχονται από διαφορετικούς πολιτισμούς σε μια περιοχή της Ελλάδας όπως είναι η Θράκη είναι μια στάση και πολιτική στάση. Οπότε πιστεύω ότι η μουσική είναι η τέχνη η οποία σε αυτό το θέμα...
I think music is the best form of communication there is. As soon as you hear it, hear our common language, music, you forget all other distinctions. It doesn't matter where it's from, in what language the lyrics are, or who's making it. When you see that the singer sincerely feels what he's saying, you don't need to understand the words, it just immediately touches you. It's our goal to share our feelings with all other people who feel the need to hear this music. They have a real need to hear something different. That's why we make our music in public, so that all those who want to hear better music can come to us, and we can share our emotions with them. And besides, we're not a group that takes the commercial approach. We're not in it for survival. We do it because we enjoy it. We all work in other professions. So I agree with Vardan when he says, instead of playing at home, we go out and play for our friends.
Παίζουμε επειδή αντί να παίζουμε στο σπίτι μας, παίζουμε στους φίλους μας.
So far, this episode's journey has taken us from Lake Kerkini near the Bulgarian border, then via Aia Eleni to Amphipolis, and then from Kavala to Komotini. We would now travel on towards Turkey through the Evros Delta to Dadia and Soufli. At the mouth of the second longest river in southeastern Europe, the Evros, which forms today's border to Turkey, another nature reserve awaited us. This area is not only home to yet more water buffalo, it is also a biotope with a rich diversity of fish and lagoon plants, and is also a preferred rest stop for many migratory birds on their arduous journey between Africa and Europe. A bit further on into the interior lies the Dadia Forest Reserve, a sanctuary for 36 of the 39 diurnal raptor species in Europe. In addition to falcons, hawks, eagles, and storks, the reserve is primarily home to vultures. The area around Dadia is one of the last refuges of the black vulture, also known as the monk vulture or carrion crow. Eleftheria Bassianotti, aka Terry, grew up in Canada. She came to Greece several years ago to get to know her parents' homeland. She was so taken with the beauty of the untouched natural environment here that she decided to stay. Terry now works for the World Wildlife Fund as a ranger in the vulture resort of Dadia. She sometimes opens this little lean-to so visitors can observe the vultures.
The birds can hear about 8 times better than humans. And that's the reason we bring here only 15 people at a time, because we don't want lots of noise because it's disturbing them and they're going away. They're also very afraid. They are even afraid of the food that sometimes we put there, the dead animal that we put once every 10 days to support them. We can put the animal and they can be up in the tree for 1 or 2 hours just looking at it because they want to be sure that it's dead. So they're not the animals that they are going to attack the food, to kill it and eat it. They eat only dead animals.
As carrion feeders, vultures are known as the police of the forests. But because scavenging doesn't always give them enough to eat, they are also regularly fed in the reserve. Here, Terry and a colleague were heading for one of their feeding stations in the forest. These trails are only accessible to those with a special permit. So sensitive is the area around the vulture nesting grounds. Terry and her colleague have just been to a slaughterhouse to pick up a weekly donation of leftovers for the carrion birds that brood in Dadia. In a fenced-in area, they offload the slaughterhouse waste products, intestines and innards, and then beat a hasty retreat. Vultures are very shy birds, and it often takes hours for them to pluck up the courage to approach the feeding grounds.
We love them, we protect them, and we're trying to do our best so their population can grow. We do some patrols in the forest to see if everything is okay, to watch for fires or for illegal hunting, because if from the shooting they get scared and they can leave their nest. And if they have an egg in the nest, the egg is getting destroyed. So we don't want that. We want the egg to be a bird, so the population can grow.
observed from afar through a telescope, the timid birds appear almost elegant, completely different than the popular image of the vulture as ugly and rather revolting.
At the beginning, it looks weird if you have never worked with them. Like me, when I first came here and I saw it, I say, oh, it's not very nice. But after working with it, and you can see it very close, like I had the chance to hug a black vulture, because when they are young in the nest, before they learn how to fly, we go up in the nest and we take the baby down to put a wing tag. And that's the way we can track them and see. We put a number that we can see from the inside and the outside of the wing. We're giving him a name. So I also have a bird with my name, Terry. The team that's there, if we're like 5-6 people, we decide which name it's going to take. So if someone names Nikos, we can name it Nikos. If it's Maria, we'll name it Maria. Like one bird last year fell from the nest, like I told you before, and we released it again on Virgin Mary Name Day in Greece on August 15th. So we named it Maria. So that whole procedure is bringing us very close to them.
The birds were still circling at a safe distance above the feeding grounds. After quite some time, the first ones descended to the treetops, but they still weren't taking any chances. But Terry knows the score and waited patiently. And then, finally, the vultures determined to partake of the feast.
It's the biggest European vulture. When he is opening his wings, he's about 3 meters long. And he's about 1 meter high and 10 kilos, his weight. And when you see it flying above you, it's impressive.
"5 minutes away as the vulture flies, close to the Turkish border, lies the last destination of this episode, the city of Soufli. The greenery in the streets is mainly mulberry tree, which thrives here and holds a special place in the development and history of the city. He too is part of this history, Yorgos Bouroulitis, silk merchant by trade. His ancestors before him were from Soufli, and they too were in the local silk trade. But in the meantime, the buzz around the silk business has died down in the little town on the Evros. Yorgos wants to change all that. His mission? To breathe new life into an old tradition. Yorgos' grandfather was silk merchant as well. Yorgos' father had originally trained as a goldsmith, but then switched to silk and eventually opened this shop here. An affinity with silk seems to be in the family DNA.
Αυτό που με συναρπάζει είναι η αφή του.
It's the way it feels that I find so captivating. The sensation you get when you touch silk is unbelievable. The material is a perfect match for human skin.
Δένει με το δέρμα του ανθρώπου. Είναι αέρινο, είναι μαλακό.
Sometimes silk is soft and airy, and sometimes it's stiff, yet still soft to the touch. It depends on which type of silk you're dealing with. Then there are the natural benefits of silk. You don't sweat when you wear it, and it's also very good for the neck. Many people wear silk scarves when they have neck pain. Moreover, it's refreshing in the summer, and it warms in winter.
Το μετάξι σουφλί είναι η ζωή του στην ουσία.
Silk is the lifeblood of Soufli. Everything begins and ends with it. There are other jobs, of course, but silk production is the most important industry for the people around here. A large share of the local population works in silk production and in the silk shops we have here.
Πέρα από τα καταστήματα που ζουν και υπάρχουν εδώ πέρα.
Yorgos is a regular visitor to the silkworm farms in the neighborhood. Thousands of silkworm eggs are kept here under precisely controlled light, humidity, and temperature conditions. Here, some of the exclusive caterpillars have already hatched. And here we also discovered why this locality is so big on mulberry trees. The little silkworms feed on freshly chopped mulberry leaves. The ones next door had already reached the next stage of development. Listen closely, and you can hear them gnawing away. Just a handful of silkworms polishes off kilos of these leaves. From the 35th day of life, they stop eating and start to develop the spinning glands that secrete the precious silk material in the form of a thread with which the silkworm slowly but surely spins itself in. Each cocoon is made of a single thread that can be up to 2 kilometers long. The next stop in the production chain, the silk weaving mills, all of them now high-tech operations. But because the silk threads are very fine and delicate, there is still no substitute for manual dexterity for the frequent re-threading of the silk thread when it tears. The great majority of silk manufactured in Soufli is colored with natural dyes. Producers here also eschew the use of synthetic waterproofing and preservatives. Back when synthetic fabrics such as nylon had not yet been invented, silk production boomed in Soufli. Hundreds of people found work in the industry. Nowadays, many of the factories stand empty, and entrepreneurs like Yorgos are working to rebrand the luxury product. My role in the business is to give a new dimension to silk. In other words, to go beyond the staid classic image, which was the standard of our grandmothers. Of course, the classic aspect remains an important part of the image, but we want to open up another dimension for silk. We want to make silk more modern, more beautiful. Today, Yorgos was joining forces with allies in the cause, models, and a photographer friend, to portray what he sees as the core quality of this exquisite material, its seductiveness. Silk is so aesthetically pleasing. We always see silk when there's an erotic scene in a film. A silk dressing gown, silk baby doll pajamas, silk bedsheets. I think silk and eroticism are inseparable, which is why silk is always sensual. My dream is to outdo the old-timers. Yes, I want to be able to achieve something I can really be proud of. And to bring the whole thing as far forward as possible to the forefront, where it once was, in fact. Here, where silk was always held in such high esteem, is precisely the place where we now have to promote production with our fresh new ideas. Yorgos is determined to keep up the fight for the silk from Soufli, a product that really does make Thrace, Greece's outermost province, something very special indeed. And with these bold plans for the future of a spot at the edge of Europe, in the Evros Delta, this part of our journey comes to an end.